The Regime. The series depicts a year inside the palace of a crumbling authoritarian regime. After not leaving the palace for quite some time, Chancellor Elena Burnham becomes increasingly paranoid and unstable and turns to a volatile soldier, Herbert Subak, as an unlikely confidant. As Subak's influence over the Chancellor grows, Elena's attempts to expand her power eventually result in the fracturing of the palace and the country around her. This political satire miniseries, released this past March 3rd on HBO, consists of 6 episodes, with the last one to be released on April 7th, and features the participation of Kate Winslet in the main role of Chancellor Elena Burnham, Matthias Schoenaerts as Herbert Subak, among other renowned actors. We have watched the first 3 episodes, and to be honest, although the story is strangely original and interesting in its own way, we have found it somewhat exaggerated, too ridiculous in parts, full of cliches, and with a story that is already predictable, since you only have to read the plot summary and pay attention to what happens on the screen to see where the story is headed and how it will end. On the other hand, there are parts that reminded us of the series The Great, which was also a satirical production about the Empress of Russia, where the same elements that we see being used in this new miniseries were used. Elements such as the excessive use of ridiculous situations and the use of profane or vulgar language that are supposed to entertain and amuse the viewer, but in our case, they had the opposite effect, as they sometimes become tedious and boring to watch. Even so, it should be noted that this satirical production explores in an unusual, direct, revealing, and one could even say interesting and intriguing way, a very current geopolitical issue, such as the case of political, more than certainly economic pressures and threats in the form of possible sanctions to be imposed by a superpower, in this case the United States, against the regime of this fictitious Eastern European country to bend them to its will in order to take over, exploit, and control the country's natural reserves of cobalt and thus keep the Chancellor on check. This aspect of the story may be somewhat uncomfortable for an American viewer to see reflected on the screen, even in a purely satirical and fictional production as this one. In terms of production elements, we found the cinematography, the set designs, and the settings to be good. The performances of the cast are good, highlighting Kate Winslet's performance, which is very good for being convincing in her role. In summary, this miniseries contains several shortcomings, such as the ones mentioned, and we found it interesting and entertaining enough to continue watching it until the end, but we don't consider it good, but just a bit more than average. So we tentatively give it a score of 2.5 stars out of 5. It's not a bad production, and it's worth watching if you like productions of this genre and if you don't have anything better to do. Until next time!